In December 2022, we moved to a new apartment within Germany, actually within Düsseldorf. In this video, we will walk you through the step-by-step process we went to with a focus on the bureaucratic paperwork, so you can also follow the same things if you're planning to move within Germany. We have also prepared a checklist for your move within Germany with all the steps that you need to take so you don't forget anything. You'll be able to download this checklist at the end of the video. We have divided the steps into two different phases, before the move and after the move. So let's start with before the move. Number 1 is to give the notice for your current rental apartment.
Correct. And typically 3 months is the usual notice period for an apartment, but be sure to check your contract, especially if you're in a short-term furnished flat. The notice periods can be a lot shorter than that, so be sure to check on your details.
Now, this notice can't be just an email that you shoot to your landlord. No, remember, we're in Germany, so everything needs to be proper. So it needs to be actually a letter, a physical letter. We have prepared an apartment notice termination letter template, which you can download at our website, simplegermany.com. We will leave the link in the description box below.
Yes, and like Jen mentioned, it needs to be a letter that is hand-signed. And this is really specific in the German law. This is the one case where digitalization has not arrived and probably will not arrive because it needs to be the original letter. So you can follow the template, need to print it, need to hand sign it. If you're living with several people, with a couple, and both of you are on the rental contract, both of you need to sign it. And this one needs to be either given personally to the landlord, or it needs to be sent by postal mail. And if you send it by postal mail, we can only recommend to do so via Einschreiben, so with tracking, which means that it's not just tracking that you know when it arrived, but also that your landlord needs to sign upon reception, and that will be sent back to you, so you have confirmation of what date your landlord received the notice of termination.
Additional to that, in the template, there's also a paragraph that asks the landlord for confirmation that they have received it, because also ideally you should have that letter with the date and the signature of the landlord of the date when they received that letter.
Correct. So we sent 2 copies and asked for one to be returned with the landlord's signature on it and the date that they received it. Just to emphasize, it is not enough and not legally correct to even scan your hand-signed letter as a PDF and send it by email. That is not okay. It needs to be really delivered in the original document. And why is it so important for you to know when the landlord received the letter? Because that's the date from which the notice period starts counting.
Number 2 is to check your contracts with service providers.
Correct. And service providers could be your electricity or gas provider if you are pulling gas or if you're contracting gas yourself, your home internet or home phone, your gym that you're going to and you're having a contract with, or also if you still have an old ticket for your local public transportation, which, why I say old, because with a 49 euro ticket, technically that is kind of like no longer accurate, but maybe you still have an old membership that you should also cancel.
Yes, and if you cannot take those contracts with you, meaning and none of these service providers are also in the area that you're moving in, you need to cancel them. It's very important, and I can't emphasize enough that you need to cancel them, because if you don't, there are certain contracts that auto-renew. It has happened to me in the past. So you need to cancel them, and for that you need to check every contract and see also what their notice period is. Sometimes, back in the day, there were still old contracts with 3-month notice period. Now, some of them are just 1 month notice period.
Depending on how long your contract has already lasted, yeah.
Yes, so be sure to check that, because you also need to cancel those things in time.
Number 3 is to deregister and then register again your kids to the schools or kitas, if applicable, of course. So obviously when you're moving and you're not moving in the same neighborhood, you most likely also need to change schools or kita and need to find new places. But not just that, but you also need to deregister them. And that's super important again. You cannot just not show up, but you need to deregister them from the school and from the kita to have them off the books, whether for pay or for just not showing up.
Number 4 is to plan your move. A very hot tip we can give here, and that has helped us a lot, is to actually create a list of the things that you have. So when we were planning our move, we were like, oh, we can totally do this ourselves. It'll take us a day, you know.
We don't have that many things.
We don't have that many things. And then we started doing this list, and this list grew and grew and grew. And suddenly we realized, wow, we have a lot of stuff, and a lot of actually big stuff that we didn't consider or realize that we had them. So because of this list, we were able to actually decide what would be the best way for us to move our things. And you can go about this in 2 ways.
Right. In Germany per se, it's quite common to ask friends to help you move, and sometimes you might have observed that on the streets, and then afterwards you just invite them to have pizza, and that's a common thing to do, and you help someone helps you. Now in your case, the question would be whether you already have such friends, depending on how long you've already lived in Germany or not. And in our case, since we moved relatively close to Christmas, a lot of friends were already traveled, were with their families, or already had other plans, so we didn't really want to ask for their help per se.
Yes, and the other option that you can consider is to actually hire professional movers. Now this, of course, can be like uberly expensive or not so expensive. Again, it depends on what services you're looking for. The best platform we can recommend for this is to look for myhammer.de. It's actually called myhammer.de.
And on that platform, it's all in German, but you can translate it to English in the Chrome browser if you use that. There you will first have to answer which items you will need to move. So there that list comes again very handy to check off or let them know how many boxes you have, whether you have bicycles, cupboards, plants, whatever it is. And there you also need to select what kind of services you'd like. Whether you want the full package, that the company also comes to your house or home and packs everything for you, carries it over or brings it to your new home and then unpacks everything. That would be the full package, which is obviously the most expensive.
Yeah.
Or you just like the move and you do the packing and unpacking yourself, which is what we chose.
Yes.
After you post your job ad, you can select the companies that you would like to receive an offer from. It shows you several providers with the reviews they had from previous customers, and you can select like up to 10 providers. And then they will contact you with an offer or probably with more questions. Some ask for pictures of the flat so they can understand better what the job is really entailing.
So in our case, we actually asked a quote from 5 different providers. 3 were out because they took actually quite a long time to reply. And the remaining 2, it was quite interesting because they provided 2 completely different quotes for the same thing. One of them provided a quote for 1,030 euros and the other one a quote for 2,500 euros.
The difference was that in this case, cheaper one was just a regional provider and a little bit less professional in their online appearance and their communication, meaning it was just via phone and email, whereas the more expensive one was a full-blown moving company that also did international moves, sent me a very official offer, so you can already tell the different styles of working.
So we were kind of like debating which one should we pick, and we actually asked our very smart brother-in-law, and he said, you know what, the difference between both is 1,400 euros, and you don't have anything that's worth that much, and even if they break things, it's not going to be 1,400 euros, so it's still cheaper to go with the cheaper option. So that's the logic that we went by, and he's right, we didn't have very expensive things, so that's
nothing got broken. So one more thing to point out about these 2 different offers is that I asked both, particularly more the cheaper one, whether I would get an invoice afterwards, and they said yes, of course, we send it to you via email. Well, I actually never got it to this day, even though I acquired 3 to 4 times, which in case you need an invoice because your company will be paying for the move or your relocation, then in that case, rather choose a provider that is more professional from upfront. In our case, it wasn't that important. It's very obvious that this was kind of like a little off the books of a job, which again, we didn't know from the start, but this can also happen.
If you're moving to a city, you have to know that European cities are very dense in traffic and parking things. So if you need space in front of your apartment or near your apartment to unload or load the truck, you can actually ask for what is called a Halterverbotszone.
Correct, yeah.
Wow. Which pretty much means that 3 days before your move, signs will be placed that no one is allowed to park there, and then you will have that space for your truck or the carts that you need to be able to unload and offload. Mind you, this is not a free service, you need to pay for it, and if you hire professional movers, they will be able to organize it. In our case, the moving company that we hired, they said that for us it would have cost 130 euros to actually have this set up. At the end, we didn't need it because in the area that we moved, it's relatively low traffic, so there was space always to offload and unload the truck.
Now, you will most likely need boxes to pack your things, and there is certain ways to get them. You should always consider having proper moving boxes. In German, they are Umzugskisten. Because they're just more stable and they have like a more sturdy floor. This is especially relevant when you're choosing professional movers because they sometimes may deny to carry flimsy boxes. You can either buy them in any Baumarkt like Bauhaus, Obi, Globus or any of the sort. You can also order them on Amazon, and sometimes you can also see them in special offers in more random shops that
Like
we've seen
Aldi.
afterwards. Yes.
Yeah. Another thing we bought on Amazon is not only the boxes, but also bubble wrap and tape and anything to protect the dishes as well. And also we had very professional moving boxes, which were sturdy. And we had non-professional moving boxes because Ivan's dad gave us a few that were more for paper stuff, I think. And actually the movers, because they usually carry a lot of boxes at the same time, they broke a few of the cardboard boxes that were flimsier, so definitely consider getting sturdier boxes to transport your things.
So for you to put the cost example into perspective, the 1,030 euro was for a move out of a 47 square meter flat. Usually the size kind of like determines how many things you might have. It was from the 6th floor without an elevator. That's usually what drives the price up. It was for around 30 boxes and around 27 bulkier items, and also for demounting the bed and remounting it in the new place. And it was within the same city. Of course, the further you move, usually the more expensive it is as well.
Now for point number 5 is how do you need to leave your old apartment? So to figure this out, you should look at your contract and what the terms and conditions are within that contract.
Exactly. The topic we're talking about here is the renovations, which very often you might have heard already that when you leave a German flat, you need to paint the walls and close the holes of nails and screws. And this is called Schönheitsreparaturen. So you should be looking for that word, if it exists in your contract, and if so, what it says. Now, we're not going into the law specifically because there's a lot of controversy amongst Germans as well. However, the rule of thumb is that when you moved into a flat that was renovated and has clean white walls, you should leave it in the same way. If you move into a flat that is not renovated, for example, our old flat, you most likely will not have to renovate it. We didn't have to.
Now, the concept here of renovating is not necessarily building the walls up again and all these things. It's more the painting and the leaving the holes closed. Again, you can hire professionals to do this as well. Now, on myhammer.de, you can also find Handwerker or craftspeople that can help you out to do this more professionally if you are uncomfortable or not sure how to handle that. Another thing we encountered is that actually we had old furniture that we needed to throw out, and of course you cannot leave it in the old apartment. The apartment needs to be empty, completely empty how you received it. So in this case, you can dispose of the old furniture by the very good German way that is called the Sperrmüll.
Correct. That is really for furniture that is old and not to be used anymore. And for Sperrmüll, you need to make an appointment online with your trash collection company of the municipality. They usually have like dates every second month or something like that. Check it out online. You can book an appointment and then leave the bulky items on the street, on the sidewalk, the night before or the morning of the pickup.
Yes, I would recommend the night before because sometimes the pickup happens very early, like at 5 or 6 in the morning. So usually people leave it out beforehand.
However, what do you do with furniture that is still good to use, but you just no longer want it, which was also the case for us. And here we used eBay Kleinanzeigen. It's just a perfect platform for secondhand trading or gifting. And we sold a few items, but we also gifted a few items that were, you arrange a date for people to pick it up. And we had a few actually very friendly people coming up to our place and demounting things and taking them to their home.
Point number 6 is to make an appointment for your Ummeldung or re-registration. Now, when you move within Germany, you have to follow the same spiel as you do for the Anmeldung. That means that you need to register to your local Amt of where your new address is. Usually you need to do this within the first 14 days of your move, so make sure to actually make the appointments ahead of time. Ivan will give you some tips about that. But additional to that, we have found in our research that if you're moving within the city, usually it's called Ummeldung, and if you're moving out to another city, it's actually just the Anmeldung that you need to do.
That being said, you do not need to deregister from your old place. That will happen automatically whenever you register with your new place. Now, we've often explained how difficult it is to find appointments for the Anmeldung for you, to do that way in advance. In our own research now, we experienced that actually the perfect time to look for an appointment is 2 to 3 weeks before your move or your arrival to Germany or your new flat. Actually, beforehand, the appointments were not online. They were only online for always 2 to 3 weeks following that date. And yes, I also made the same experience that I looked sometimes online, even early mornings at 7 a.m. and there were 0 appointments. And it's like, how am I supposed to do this? But the tip that I can share with you is that whenever I looked on a Sunday around midday, there were plenty of appointments that I could find. I don't know if that's just a Düsseldorf thing, but that was my experience. And if you already have a car when you move within Germany, be sure to also, when booking the Anmeldung or Ummeldung appointment, to also tick the box for re-registering a car, because that can be done in the same appointment. You need to pay a little bit for it. For us, it was €10.80, but they will only do it if you actually also book that as part of the appointment. And of course, bring your car papers as well.
Point number 7 is to set up a mail forwarding service. We highly recommend considering this because otherwise your mail will get lost because some things might still arrive to your old address and there is no way that you can get it unless maybe you know the landlord or there's some arrangement. But the best way to be sure that you will get that mail is to book this mail forwarding service. You can do this with the Deutsche Post, and the German word for this is
Nachsenderauftrag.
And you can sign up for this service online or also go there personally. And you can choose to have this service for 6 or 12 months. And how much you pay depends on the length that you want for the service. We got the 6-month package for €23, more or less.
Point number 8, as before the move, is to, of course, get the keys for your new flat. So to do the Wohnungsübergabe, the handover of the new flat. And here you have a few things to pay attention to. It's very important that you and the landlord or whoever is doing the handover with you has a sheet of paper where certain things get checked off. One of them is to put the number of keys you're actually getting. The next one is to check the electricity meter and write down the reading. We have an entire video that goes into the details of that process. The next thing is to walk through the flat and just look that everything looks correct, or if there are some scratches or other things to be noted, to also write them down on that piece of paper. For us, for example, we had a little crack in one of the windows within a door, and we had to mark that down because we don't want to be liable for that crack. If there are any things that are not okay, be sure to also take pictures of them so you always have the proof of that. And last but not least, be sure to get the signed and filled in Wohnungsgeberbestätigung from the landlord or whoever does the handover. That is the paper you need for your re-registration or the Ummeldung, Anmeldung, whatever you want to call it, because without that, you can't do that.
If you're finding the content of this video valuable, then please hit that like button. And if you want to get the latest information on how to settle into life in Germany more smoothly, then make sure to subscribe to our channel.
And if you'd like to go the extra mile, you can of course always buy us a coffee at simplegermany.com/coffee. Thank you for your support.
Now for the day of the move. Now if you decided to move yourself, then for sure maybe your friends bring cars, or also you can rent trucks. There's popular apps like Miles and even Europcar that rent trucks, so be sure that you have arranged that beforehand because you most likely need to pick up your things. If you hired professional movers like us, then the only thing you need to be sure is that everything is packed on time. For us, they were super in time. It was a group of 4 men, very strong men, and it was super fast. They got all of our things. These were the 30 boxes and 27 bulky items, including demounting and mounting the bed, all of it in 2.5 hours.
And not just taking them out, but bringing them to a new place and bringing everything in. So the entire move, okay, it was within the same city, but still, entire move, 2.5 hours. I was super impressed. I thought it would take way longer.
Yes, and another tip we can give you to make this more smoothly is to actually write on your boxes what is in there. That is for you when you unpack. But most importantly is where these boxes should go, because then the movers can actually leave the boxes in the places you need them to.
And the examples are here: kitchen, living room, bedroom, basement, so really like room structure.
Yes. So like Ivan mentioned, the process went super fast, and I found that the moving part was not the hard part, or the packing part is the unpacking. That has been like a never-ending story where we unpack, and then we're still unpacking, but you take one step at a time. Now let's go into the section of after the move, and what do you do? Number 1 is to hand over your old flat
to the landlord, or again, whoever is receiving, for example, the keys. And here it depends a little bit on how much overlapping time you have between getting the new flat and leaving the old flat. Sometimes some people do it on the same day. That is a bit very tight. I would not like to do that. We had a little bit more time, but at some point in this process is be sure to hand over your old flat and do pretty much the exact same thing you did in the handover for the new flat. Write down the electricity meter, take pictures, look at the shape of the flat, hand over all the keys, and just get the okay and the signature of everything is great.
Additional to that, you should remind whoever you're giving the flat over to or hand over to remind them of the Kaution, meaning the deposit that you will get back. Also, in our termination letter template, we have a section there reminding the person who receives it about the Kaution and also in which bank account they should deposit it.
Correct. Again, that flat should be clean and ready to be handed over. Number 2 is to actually do the Ummeldung, attend the appointment that you did beforehand. If you're unsure of what documents to bring, check out our guide in the description below, and there you have all the details.
Number 3 is to communicate your new address. You should consider communicating your new address to the Ausländerbehörde. Here we cannot give you strict advice. You should really check your case. General rule of thumb is that if you're moving within the same city, you most likely don't need to inform them. But if you're moving outside of the city, you need to inform the Ausländerbehörde in that city, pretty much for your case file to be transferred from one institution or one office to the other. Or more, one state to the other. I think
one municipality to the other.
Yes. But definitely make sure to check with them. It's better to ask them and send them an email and hope for them to reply than just assume you don't need to do anything and then you find out that you skipped the step, and that would be no bueno.
If you're employed, you need to inform your employer of your new address, and then there are other service providers such as insurances, banks, electricity providers if you're stuck with the same one. The Rundfunkbeitrag, oh yeah, there was that thing that you're paying monthly, well, quarterly, to receive internet and television or radio in your German home. They will also want to know your new address. If not, they'll send you a letter and asking like, are you already paying? And last but not least, if you're self-employed or freelancing, then you should also inform the Finanzamt.
Number 4 is how to dispose of big boxes, cardboard boxes, and plastic. Now, when you start the magical world of unpacking, you will realize that you will have a lot of plastic trash if you used a lot of bubble wrap to protect your things, and sometimes even cardboard boxes if you bought new things and you need to dispose of the packaging of that. The question is, where do you throw these things away? We have a whole video explaining about recycling in Germany that you can check out here, but to give you the gist of it is that if it's big cardboard boxes, you should flatten them, please flatten them, and then within cities there are these big containers that you can dispose of them. If you leave them outside of the container, that is considered polluting and you might be fined for this. Really, true story.
If your address is still on the box.
If your address is still in the box, of course, yeah. If they're able to identify you, right? That doesn't mean take it off and leave it there. That's not what we're saying. Another way you can do that is if you have a car or you have a friend that can take you, you can go to a recycling hof, and usually there you can just throw the boxes and they have machines that compress them so you don't need to flatten them precisely. And for plastic, if you have a lot of plastic wrap, there, unfortunately, the only way you can dispose of it is at a recycling hof, at least as far as we know. Because at least here in the city of Düsseldorf, there are no containers for throwing away plastic.
I've never seen them anywhere, really.
Yeah, and the only place we've seen it is actually in a recycling hof. And please don't put it in the normal trash of your building, because that thing will fill up super fast and your neighbors won't be happy.
Not the best way to build the relationship, exactly, yeah. Another word for Recyclinghof could be also Wertstoffhof, and those are the places where you can also dispose of other things. Go there once if you have one nearby and you'll be impressed.
Yes. Did you know we have templates on our website that can help you settle into life in Germany more smoothly?
You can check them out at simplegermany.com/templates.
Now continuing with the video.
And speaking of neighbors, number 5 on the list is to go say hi to them, introduce yourself, and try to foster a positive relationship with them from the start so they also know who just moved into that empty flat.
Yeah, I would say when we moved here, we introduced ourselves to the neighbors, and the response has been very cool and very happy, and also super cool when you walk out and you see the neighbors, oh, hello, guten Tag, you know, like you recognize each other. It's not like,
they
who are
accept
you?
Packages for you, you know, it's all this win-win that we also describe in how to be a good neighbor.
Yes. Number 6 is to buy furniture. That is, if it's applicable to you. Now, with Yvonne, for example, you got the apartment all furnished, so there was already furniture. And when we moved, we realized things were a lot more worn out than we had anticipated. So we had to get new stuff, not only new furniture, but also new home goods. To learn more detailed information of where you can buy furniture and other home goods in Germany, make sure to check out the video here on the left. Until next time,
Tschüss!